actually, yeah.
All right, so welcome everyone to our virtual open house. My name is Michelle Reed. I am an instructor in the Science Communication program and our technical advisor.
And I'm Dr. Chantal Barrio, and I'm the director of the Science Communication program that we run in partnership with between Laurentian and Science North. So we're here to talk to you all about our program. Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
So as part of today's open house, we have a series of slides that we've prepared for you that walk through some of the sort of high-level overview of our program, some of the things that we think make us pretty unique, an understanding of who applies to us. And we're very interested also to have time to hear your questions. We are not going to record the question portion of this discussion, but you are welcome to contribute things in the chat as we go throughout, and we'll try to address them as we come up through the conversation. So we will give you an opportunity to unmute yourself and ask questions at the end once we stop recording.
Absolutely. So yeah, like Michelle said, we are keeping an eye on the chat, and we're also keeping an eye at other participants that may come in. So before we even get into the program and what the program's all about, we typically start by asking folks to think about what science communication is in the first place. It's kind of, it can be challenging to think about, what exactly is science communication? And we hear from folks sometimes that say things like, oh, it's about dumbing down science. And we really, really don't like that term because, if you say dumbing down, you're suggesting that the folks that are on the receiving end of your communication aren't intelligent enough to understand what you're saying. So, in a real sort of simple sense, science communication really is about communicating or making sense of science with non-experts, or communicating science with non-experts. That's like a simple definition, but we do have a more complete definition that we'd like to share with folks because it's a newer definition and it's really good. And it's from the UK National Coordinating Centre for Public Engagement. And here it is: the many ways in which the processes, the outcomes, and the implications of sciences can be shared or discussed with audiences. It involves interaction with the goal of interpreting scientific or technical developments, or discussing issues with a scientific or technical dimension. So you see there that I've highlighted a few of those words in blue, just to really give you a sense of what the nuances are of science communication. It really is much more involved than just, simplifying scientific concepts for the general public. It's a much more involved in that, and that's what we have an entire program to explore. Another thing that's important to remember is that the field of science communication is really growing, and it's a growing scholarly field. So if you're interested in coming to us and doing a master's degree, rest assured that this field, although new, it really is a growing scholarly field with its own journals, lots of publications, and many scholars in the field that are studying all sorts of aspects in science communication. And we'll touch a little bit on what types of research get done in this field near the end of the presentation, when we talk about what our students do in terms of research projects. The next slide is just a map of all the master's degrees in science communication in Canada. It's still only our program here at Laurentian University in Sudbury. There are still no other programs like ours. There are programs that are science journalism focused or museum studies focused, but none that are as all-encompassing as ours is. And in fact, none for sure don't have a partnership with a science center.
So Chantal mentioned that we're unique in that there's just us and that we have a partnership with the Science Center. And we'd like to talk a little bit about some of our partners here. So our program has been offering a graduate education in science communication since 2005. We were accredited to offer a master's degree stream in 2017. And now we do offer both options, a master's degree and this graduate diploma that we've been offering since the beginning. We'll talk a little bit more about those pathways and the structure of those as we carry on in the presentation. But let's chat a little bit about these two partners that you see on the screen here. So it is a unique model in that we are co-delivered by a university and a science center. So the bottom picture that you see here representing Laurentian University is the Valet Living with Lake Center, where I am actually currently sitting in one of those bottom offices right now. And it is a multidisciplinary research institute designed to help assist in the protection and management of northern aquatic ecosystems. And they look a lot at the connections between lake and land. What's unique about being housed at this particular location is that we are part of a cooperative unit of researchers that work for the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks. We have industry collaborators in the mining industry, partners from the Canadian Fire Services and Natural Resources Canada. So it's a cool center to be housed in because we have access to researchers who are doing really important environmental work that also has policy implications. And our other partner is Canada's second largest science center. It is a team that has been very focused on engaging people in the process of science, and they are leaders in science communication at Science North in terms of design, evaluation, and really understanding how people engage in free choice learning. It's really a benefit for us to be situated alongside the Science Center because if you think we sort of treat it like this experiential learning hub for us, where we kind of talk about how medical schools have a teaching lab or a teaching hospital, we sort of treat Science North like that. It's our place where we can interact on real projects with staff scientists and also engage with the kinds of audiences who would attend programming that's part of the Science Center and the outreach activities that they do. And beyond just their two partners that co-run the program, you can see we've got this aerial map of where we are located in Sudbury. And I thought I would orient you to this in case I'm sure not that many of you are really familiar with the intricacies of Sudbury or the coastline of Ramsey Lake. You can see here, we've got Laurentian University pointed to with an arrow there. And then we also have Science North just down the street from us. So we are quite close. It's walkable. And we have this interesting red line that you see draw here that we're starting to try and brand as the knowledge corridor, or I've heard people say research road. And it's because along this very short strip of road, we have the university, we have the Science Center, we have Health Sciences North, where there is a lot of research into clinical trials and cancer research and all sorts of cutting edge treatment being done there. And then you see us located here on the Valley Living with Lake Center. Not on this road, but in a short drive of us is also Snow Lab, which is the deepest clean lab in the world, where they work on big physics questions and recently won a Nobel Prize. So you can see based on where we are and looking at the bigger history of research in Sudbury, there is a rich tradition of public engagement that I think is really embedded in the research culture here. And we really benefit as a program from working every day alongside the individuals and organizations here who are trying to solve challenging research problems. And we do this by really embedding project-based learning and group activities and experiential learning into the core of each of our classes. So we have a lot of opportunities. You can see the picture on the left there is myself and some students getting ready to film a series of research talks on campus. We have our students working on design challenges in our classroom together, and students on the right engaged in prototyping different kinds of exhibits or demonstrations for educational purposes. And this sort of collaborative group-based problem solving is a big tenet of the way that we run our classes. And I think is quite unique for a lot of graduate education as well. So we really have three pillars of the way that we run our program, and all of our classes and experiential learning components align with these three pillars: the theory, research, and practice. Our students, by kind of focusing on each of these pillars, develop the skills that they need to thrive in this rapidly growing field of science communication. And it's a very interesting and fulfilling field, I think. I personally might be biased, but to work in, because it sits you right at the intersection of science and society and seeing how they overlap. And our students, whether they find work in government roles, nonprofit, educational, research, or maybe even media production positions, they are motivated to engage respectfully and help effectively engage audiences in ways that make science accessible for everyone. And when we say making science accessible, we mean the outcomes and findings and process of science, just like Chantal mentioned in that definition on the earlier slide. So we do this through these three pillars, like we've mentioned. We look at the theory behind what interdisciplinary perspectives are saying makes for effective and meaningful science engagement. We see what research is telling us on what is effective and what drives impact, and we're constantly updating our lectures to align with the research that's coming out in some of those journals that Chantal also mentioned. And from the practice pillar, we get to apply these evidence-based approaches to practically communicating, not just learning the theory or conducting original research, but we are doing the science communication for our class projects and for our work placements, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah. Before getting into all the intricacies of the courses themselves, we thought you'd like to know what kinds of folks apply to our program, who applies to science communication. So we have a little bit of a breakdown here for you that I'll share with you. About 70% of folks who apply to our program come from a biology, a biomed, or an environmental sciences type of background. So it is the majority of our applicants, but that's not the only kinds of applicants we get. We do get folks that come from physics, math, engineering, geology, chemistry, anthropology, and psychology. So it does run the gamut, but we pull a little bit more from the biology and biological sciences than the other sciences. As for who are they, not just what their background is, but are they right from an undergraduate degree? Well, no, not really. About a third are coming to us directly from their undergraduate degree, but another third come to us after having had work experience, and another third come to us after having already done either a master's degree or a PhD. So those are the kinds of students we're getting. We get about 50 applicants, and of those applicants, 90% of them are coming from Canada, and about 10% are international students. That arrow is demonstrating that that's increasing. We're getting more and more international students that are applying for our program every year. The types of, or the countries that our international students are coming from, the majority of international students are coming from the US. I think we have had an American student or two every year for the past 5 or 6 years. The other countries are in sort of ascending order there, or descending order from France, China, Brazil, India, Germany, Mexico, and Uruguay. I'm sure we'll get others, but that's just in a nutshell where the students have been coming to us from. And with that, Michelle's going to talk a little bit about the program overview to give you a sense of what's in it.
So I mentioned when I was talking about, since we've been around since 2005, that we do offer these 2 streams, the master's degree and the graduate diploma. And we like to give people a bit of a snapshot on what those look like. But in general, our program runs in person at the Living with Lakes Center in Science North. And for anyone who's enrolling in the program, we always start in September, and we roll forward from there. So our intake is always starting in the fall. If you look at the 2 streams here, what we call the MSCOM and the GDIP, you can see that for the master's degree, that works out to 33 credits, which is 10 courses, including a work placement and a major research paper. For the graduate diploma, that is 27 credits, which is 9 courses, and that still includes the work placement component. From a duration perspective, that makes the master's degree slightly longer. It is a full year, and the graduate diploma students finish usually in June after their work placement. From a tuition perspective, these are pulling from 2022 numbers, but they're very close to where we are today. That's just the incidental fees have slightly changed if you want to check in on what's most recent. But it is a cost per credit. 3 credits is what you see the price for online, and this is what it breaks down to. Just over $12,000 domestic, or $22,000 for our master's degree, and then slightly less because the program is shorter for the graduate degree. We want to give you a high-level overview how this program is structured. As we mentioned, everybody enrolls in September, and in this fall term, you can see that it's quite heavy with 5 courses. And everyone in both the master's degree and the graduate diploma stream would be enrolled in these 5 classes. And we'll talk about them each in a little bit of detail in a second. But this is really the term where we deep dive into the theory of science communication. In our winter term, which runs January to April, again, everyone will be enrolled in these 2 core courses, one being our new media and our practice course. But people get to pick one of 2 electives, which is an interesting option that we'll explore in a few slides as well. And the last term you see here is our spring term, and this is where things differ depending on if you're in the master's degree or the graduate diploma. Everyone completes their practice placement, but students who are in the master's degree stream complete a major research paper as well. If you would like to read the descriptions for any of these courses, if you go to our website, which is sciencecommunication.ca, and you go down to the very bottom of the program details page, you can click on each of the course titles and read the full description for each of those. But we're going to give you a bit of a teaser for them right now.
Yeah. So here's a bit of a teaser. So in your fall term, for the first term between September and December, like Michelle said, it's primarily a theory-based term. So this is where we're doing sort of foundational concepts before we let you free into the wilds of doing science communication in the second and third term. So audiences and issues is the first course that you take. And as it's described here, it's really an exploration of this intersection of science and society. We're looking at the influence of values, beliefs, motivations, and interests on how people engage with science, believe in science, make decisions based on science. It's much more, this course is very interdisciplinary and really takes from sociology and psychology to really understand what we're dealing with when we're communicating and engaging with a variety of different audiences. The next course is learning. So we talk about learning theories, and this is really to better understand how folks make sense of new information. We really do focus on science in particular. How do people make meaning of new information and new experiences? So this course is primarily based in psychology. So that's the second course. And then the third course is a rhetoric based course, which is taught from a prof in our English department. And this is really about studying the language and crafting language and crafting persuasive arguments in the practice of science communication. This is a course that, again, this multidisciplinary focus that we have in our program, it's quite different. And students who come to our program, find this one particularly interesting if they've never taken any courses in the humanities before. Moving along, design thinking and design process. And really, Michelle teaches this one. She's a passionate design thinking and process instructor, designing visuals and interactives, making sure that these experiences are accessible and maximum accessibility for understanding and engagement. And last but not least, what rounds out the first term is research methods in science communication. And that's my course, one of my courses, where we really explore methodologies that come from social sciences and humanities. So, folks who are coming to us are typically from science degrees. So delving into social science methodology is really important so that you're equipped to be able to do the major research project at the end. Despite the fact that the GDIP or the graduate diploma stream doesn't do a research project, they still benefit from taking a research methods course, especially when it comes to things like evaluation and knowing how to do surveys and interviews, because as science communication professionals, we're often asked to conduct those kinds of studies and using those methodologies.
So as Chantal mentioned, we really use first term to ground you in the theories that underpin sort of evidence-based and interdisciplinary approaches to doing science communication. And then we really dive into actually doing it in our second term. So the first class that we have listed here is science communication practice. And this is where students get an opportunity to really hone their skills as effective presenters and figuring out how to convey knowledge to non-specialists through writing, policy briefs, press releases, and working with researchers to co-craft effective science communication assets. In our second course we have here called Communicating Through New Media, we take a deep dive into what it looks like to communicate science on social media. So it's an understanding of practically using these platforms, but also the opportunities and challenges of social media as a way that publics are using to make meaning of science and to communicate with each other and with researchers. This is the first of our two electives that students have to choose between, and it's often a tough choice. The first one here is that they are practicing communicating science through traditional media. And this is how we differentiate it through new media, which is what we call social media. Here, they're looking at things like broadcast media, film production, interviewing for radio, and working in sort of print and honing their skills from everything before, in front of, behind the camera, and doing the editing as well. And that second elective that students are also excited to partake in is communicating science through exhibits. And this is delivered by our partner at Science North, where they get to work alongside staff scientists and the production team to conceptualize, design, build unique exhibits that they then put out on the science floor and get to observe visitors interacting with, testing, playing with their exhibits, and measuring sort of the learning possibilities of those things and reporting back to the team at Science Fair. In our spring and summer term, we mentioned that there are two major components. There is a work placement and a research project. So we were going to chat about those a little bit now. The work placement really depends on the interests of the students and the industry that they want to go into, but it is usually a 2-month placement at a variety of places that we have contacts with. So you can see here, this list that we've popped up just shows some of the places where students have done their work placements over the years, ranging on everything from journals, from ecology centers to museums and science centers. We see government units here, folks doing video production, traveling around with exhibits or going from school to school. Lots of really interesting opportunities depending on the passions and the interests of the students who are pursuing that work placement. And we often hear that this is a great place for students to actually apply the skills and theory that they learned in our program and work with a real team.
And often students with their placements will have opportunities that extend beyond their placements as well. It's not guaranteed, but it's often extended beyond that. So as Michelle said, this is the 3rd term. So you do a placement, students do a placement in the 3rd term, but they also have to concentrate on doing their research paper, their major research paper. This is a poster that we developed because every year at the end of the summer in September, the students get to showcase their major research paper at our annual research symposium, which is usually over the span of 2 days. So we wanted to share this with you just to give you an idea of the types of topics and the range of topics that folks can really explore when they come to science communication. So everything from, Laura Thomas is using digital tools to create meaningful Indigenous consultation in the mining industry, to science centers, to COVID communication. You can tell that this year there was a lot of COVID going on because there's quite a few projects that centered around the communication and COVID. And again, it's really reflective of the time that this symposium occurred. It was in 2021, which is the year that we went completely online for an entire year. So it's no wonder that students had an interest in COVID communication that year. What we find particularly fun and encouraging is that some of these papers end up being published. So students who are really passionate and excited and want to continue down the path of academia, or even if they don't want to go down academia, but they have a real solid and interesting paper that we think can get published, then that's what we do. We work with them to get them published, and we've been quite successful over the last few years, publishing around 5 or 6, I think, since Lisa's paper there on the effects of gender harassment on science popularization behaviors. So that's pretty exciting. Another really important aspect of our program that complements the teaching from like the formal part of our curriculum is weekly guest speakers. So we bring in professional science communicators from all over the place, from all kinds of different careers and jobs. And more now we're able to, just dip into our alumni pool for this, because we've been running our program since 2005. So we have a lot of graduates, alumni out there who have really established, great careers in science communication, and they come back as guest lecturers or guest speakers to really tell, the new crop of students what their path was like, and what they're currently doing now, and what are the skills that they're using at the moment, and what that they found most valuable. So meeting guest speakers really gives the opportunity for networking as well, and for making, which, as you all know, networking is so important when it comes time to trying to find work after school, after graduation. Another part of great experiential learning is field trips. Learning outside the classroom as much as possible when we can, when it's not, when we're not shut down because of COVID. We're traveling. We have partners at the Perimeter Institute at the University of Waterloo, at the ROM, the Ontario Science Centre. The people in the hard hat there are underground at Snow Lab, the dark matter and neutrino observatory that we have in Sudbury that Michelle alluded to a while ago. And I think our next slide, Michelle's going to talk to us about, exactly where are these graduates going, these alumni that I'm talking to about.
Yeah, so we often previously would hear, I mean, I heard because I was a student in this program, what do you do with a science communication degree? And we thought we would show you some of the interesting and diverse job titles that our grads are filling. So things like science communicator, relatively straightforward, communication specialist, knowledge translator, outreach coordinator, research program manager, interpreter or facilitator, or even something specific like a social media officer. And these are not the only titles. If you look on LinkedIn and you look for science communication skills, it's a very transferable skill set that we develop as part of this program. And we have alumni all over the world working in a variety of sectors, ranging from educational and research institutions, the nonprofit science sector, science centers, museums, zoos, and aquaria. We have people who are very passionate about working in government and as public servants. We have folks going into corporate, private sector or industry work, and a number of folks start up their own freelance consulting or science writing roles. We recently surveyed our alumni, both to understand where they first worked when they left the program and where they are now working. And if you look at this data set we have here, down the side, you can see those sectors that I just mentioned. This is looking at who hires our graduates immediately after leaving the program. And you can see that immediately after graduating, folks are being snapped up by the not-for-profit sector, working at post-secondary places like universities and colleges, or in the research institutions. Many people are going into the private sector and are going into museums, science centers, zoos, and aquaria. And this is for their first position out of the program. This shifts a little bit if you look at where our alumni are now currently employed. So we ran this survey in the spring of 2021 and asked our network what they were up to now. And we do see that the not-for-profit and post-secondary institutions are still quite high up on that list, but increasingly more people are going into different roles and different levels of government. And we still see a lot of folks who are quite excited about going into the museum, science center, zoo, and aquaria space. But rising on that list also, we're seeing more and more people who are interested in healthcare positions, working in hospital communications, or in public health units as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the benefits we think, and we've heard from our alumni as well, is that we have this really active alumni network of all these science communicators from our program over the years that are working in diverse careers all around the world. So the benefits of graduating from our program is also this growing network of connections that you'll have access to afterwards. So you may all now be wondering, okay, so how do I get in, right? And you may very well have already gone onto our website. You may have already started your application process. If not, here's the real, I always say Cole's Notes, but apparently that's not a thing anymore. It's Spark's Notes, maybe. Anyways, here's the summary of what's important about the criteria for applying to our program. We do require, all graduate programs at Laurentian University require a minimum of 70% GPA from a 4-year science degree. Or if it's not a 4-year science degree, it has to be very significant extracurricular or work experience in science. So there are exceptions to this science degree rule. We do have special cases. Folks reach out to us and say, look, I've been working in industry, or I've been working in a science lab, or I've been doing this, I've been working in the science center. Those kinds of work experiences or what have you really do contribute to whether or not you meet the application criteria. The other important part for that criteria is a real demonstrated interest in the field of science communication, a demonstrated ability to communicate technical information to non-specialist audiences. So that's because as part of your application, we do ask you to demonstrate that you have, an interest in this field, that you're not just kind of master's degree shopping and seeing, oh, who's going to take me? It's a competitive program. So to stand above others, it's important that you know what the science communication field is all about, what it means, why it matters, telling us why you think you belong here. And again, having had some of that experience actually communicating technical information with others. So if you are interested in applying, all the information you need is on our website. So sciencecommunication.ca, all the details are there. The bullet points that you see there are what we require. So a personal statement of interest, which is what I just talked about, evidence of your science background. So yes, you'll have your degree if you've got a BSc or Bachelor Honors Bachelors of Science, but we also ask for, a description of, this science that you like and why, that kind of thing. Evidence of communication ability. This evidence can be anything from something you've written for a local newspaper to blogs that you've written. So a lot of folks have been doing, experimenting with animation, or people have worked in museums and science centers or volunteered with organizations like Let's Talk Science. Anything that demonstrates that you've been involved in doing communication is acceptable. Your CV, your transcripts, and then of course 3 references. At least 2 should be academic references. Sometimes folks who've been out of university for a while find it challenging to find academic references. If that's the case, then you can reach out to us and we can help navigate that. And our application deadline is always March 1st. Every single year, the portal closes on that date, and it doesn't open again until November of the following year to start the intake. So that is about it, I think. And we are happy to hang around and listen to you. If you have any questions, you can, if you don't want to unmute or come on screen, please feel free to put something in the chat. We strongly encourage you to follow us on social media to see what our current students are working on, because we do post a lot, especially on Instagram, because it's such a visual medium to showcase what the students are up to and the projects that they're involved in and the partners that they're working with and all that kind of fun stuff. So with that, Michelle, did you want to add anything? Did I miss something?
I just remembered one thing about the application criteria that maybe this will come up in the conversation that we're about to have, but when it comes to demonstrating communication ability, we're looking at communication ability for non-specialists.
Right.
So we often get asked, can I send you a thesis or a research article? And while those are excellent examples of technical communication, we're looking at how you distill, translate, and make this technical information relevant and valuable for different non-specialist audiences. So folks who are not currently working in the same field that you're in. If that helps, if you need some clarification about what we're looking for, please look on our website and then reach out to us if you still have questions. With that, I am going to pause the recording and give you an opportunity to ask questions.